So that just gives you an idea of the difference between when you're using that size 5, what the difference is in terms of where you have to aim. Yeah, it does seem to be significantly more damaging. Pretty low velocity. You can see that there just by the pip flipping back and forth. Significantly reduced from before. So the last patch, the BRVS had 600 ammo each. They're down to 150 each. The Revenant has 225. It had 675 in the last patch. So try toggling it. Yeah, see, the pip goes in closer. It picks up only the repeaters when I disable the deadbolt. But if we land a hit with that deadbolt, it's gonna probably hurt. Yeah, it hurts. Alright, so in the last PTU patch, we had basically discovered that the size 5 mount on the Vanguard was basically useless if you wanted to use repeaters because of the combined pip. But in the most recent patch notes, they said that they've made a change where deactivated weapons no longer count towards the pip calculation convergence. So if we disable the big cannon, we should be able to take advantage of the repeater's velocity. So I'm just testing this in Arena Commander just because that's a little bit easier. So that's the pip on that target there. Now let's see what happens if I enable the cannon. This is a little difficult to test solo, but let's see. Yeah, you can see there the pip shifting as I turn on and off the cannon. So that means you could theoretically run a build where you have a cannon or another big weapon that you only use against larger and slower targets that you power on and off. Because with the cannon powered off, that means you're getting more ammo for the repeaters because you're not draining it from the capacitor. So if you look here, the repeaters have 51 shots each. If I enable the cannon, they drop down to 27. Although the amount of damage that you can deal out in that burst between the cannon and the repeater goes up with the cannon in play. So now we get the advantage of disabling the cannon for better weapon convergence with the pips, and we get additional ammo on all of those repeaters. So this is a very good change, and specifically for the Vanguard, it helps an awful lot for different loadouts. There's a significant amount of damage boost by going to a size 5 cannon in particular. Size 5 repeaters don't seem to have that much of a damage increase over, say, a size 4 on a gimbal, but this way you're not totally hurting yourself by only having one slower weapon in your loadout, because you can basically disable it. So what I think they should do in addition or instead is make each weapon group have its own separate pip. You have 2 weapon groups, that means the maximum you're ever going to be dealing with is 2 pips, and give a separate convergence for each weapon group. That way, each weapon group, you could put together, say, one group with all cannons and one group with all repeaters, and that way the slower weapons are not going to mess with the velocity of the faster weapons. You can keep them all powered that way and then just choose when you fire the individual groups, or you could just power them off as well. But that provides, but that change provides a lot more options. And a lot more flexibility. So I'm very, very happy with that change. So yeah, it's good to confirm that that's working. That should open up a few more options for people. All right, good to test that. Let's check out a few other changes. So the patch also mentions some changes to ballistic weapons in terms of like ammo counts. So let's just change our loadout here quickly. Let's put Revenant on. And let's put on some... I'll put on a pair of the ballistic repeaters. So let's just see what our ballistic repeater and Gatling options look like now in terms of the Vanguard. Significantly reduced from before. So the last patch, the BRVS had 600 ammo each. They're down to 150 each. The Revenant has 225. It had, I believe, 675 in the last patch, so further ballistic weapon reduction. However, they are supposed to be more powerful, so let's just make sure our weapon groups are set right here. So we'll put all the ballistics on one. There we go.
Shields under fire. Shield down.
So let's just see what this does.
First blood.
Yeah, it does seem to be significantly more damaging. So compared to the last video, it might be a better option. Yeah, that's a lot of damage, guys. That's a lot of damage. I know those are just NPC ships, but you can definitely tell there's a lot of damage there. The only reason that he didn't die there is because I just didn't hold down the trigger that long.
Warning. You are approaching simulation boundary. Zero hostile contacts remaining.
I don't know if I like the idea of ballistic weapons being this strong, though. Because...
Warning. There are multiple hostiles inbound. Contact.
basically, if you don't kill something and they kill you, there's not really any point to not running ballistics. At least from a, you know, player versus player perspective.
Contact.
Because my initial impression of that, and I mean, I could be wrong.
Hostile contacts remaining.
Well, my initial impression is either you run ballistics or you die to somebody who does.
Warning. There are multiple hostiles inbound. Contact.
Curious if they've changed the size 5 repeater velocity. I didn't see anything in the patch notes, but let's just test that as well.
Swarm initiated.
Aegis combat assist activated. Systems green.
We'll just test it the same way that we tested the cannon. Size 5 weapons, at least as of the last patch, were all 700 meters per second. So we'll know if the pip bounces back and forth when we turn the Galdarine on and off, if there is a change. So there is, with the Galdarine on, and we'll toggle it back. Yeah, so the Galdarine is still pretty low velocity. You can see that there just by the pip flipping back and forth.
Ammo depleted.
Yeah, see how the pip gets farther away from the target when the Galdarine is on? Causing the weapon convergence to be different.
Ammo depleted. Ammo depleted.
So again, like I mentioned in previous patch, I think what we need to see for larger repeaters and larger cannons is there needs to be some kind of a differentiating factor in their velocity. Because right now they're a little bit too samey. So now that we don't have that issue with the pip convergence, or at least that we can manage it ourselves, let's check out the Deadbolt 5. We already looked at the BRVS. Let's look at putting the laser repeaters back on. Let's just see how much ammo the Deadbolt gets us.
Aegis combat assist activated.
So it looks like we get 70 with the Deadbolt. Not an awful lot.
Warning. There are multiple hostiles inbound.
So we should be able to do the same thing with the Deadbolt in order to get our weapon convergence, pip velocity, whatever you want to call it, back as well. So let's just try toggling it. Yeah, see the pip goes in closer because it picks up only the repeaters when I disable the Deadbolt. So that means you could disable it. That means you could disable it when dealing with lighter, more agile things, and shoot them with laser repeaters.
First blood.
And then the laser repeaters still keep their higher velocity as well. Now if we enable the Deadbolt, then all of our weapons are going to converge at the speed of the Deadbolt instead of the speed of the repeater. So like instead of 1400 meters per second, it's going to be 700 meters per second. But if we land a hit with that Deadbolt, it's going to probably hurt.
0 hostile
Yeah, it
contacts
hurts.
remaining.
So if a target's buzzing around you too fast that you can't
Warning.
really hit
There are
it
multiple hostiles
with that size
inbound.
5 now, or with that size 5 enabled, you can just disable that size 5 and get all kinds of velocity back. You can basically double the effective velocity of the whole weapon setup just by disabling it. So one other option that we'll look at here, we'll look at the Combine. And this is going to work a little bit differently because it's a size 4. It's still a cannon, so it doesn't have great velocity. It's still the same thing, still 700 meters a second. But we don't have to disable it, and we get the advantage of a gimbal.
Systems green.
So now we'll have 2 targeting pips. One that represents the Combine, and one that represents the GVSRs.
Warning. There are multiple hostiles inbound.
So you can see that further out pip, that represents the Combine. The closer in one represents the GVSRs. So that just gives you an idea of the difference between when you're using that size 5, what the difference is in terms of where you have to aim relative to the ship. Of course, with the Combine being a size 4, it's on a gimbal, so we can use an auto gimbal setup with it. And we don't have to enable and disable it in order to make use of the close. So there's a little bit less management there. Although being a smaller weapon, it's not going to be as effective. Although it does have more rounds. It has 100 rounds instead of 70.
Depleted. Shields under fire.
Yeah, with cannons and repeaters at size 5 sharing the same velocity, it's hard to recommend one of those repeaters. It's hard to recommend a Galderine or Attrition 5 on the Vanguard, because you're not really gaining anything by it. Like, just better dumping on, you know, whatever cannon, ballistic or laser. For as much as you're probably going to end up using the ballistic cannon, for as much as you'd probably end up using a size 5 cannon, it's probably worth using the ballistic cannon over the laser cannon, I would guess. But that really depends. There's not an awful lot of ammo on that ballistic cannon. Although, if you are going to be actually shooting the cannon at a target, you know, if you're going to be taking that convergence velocity hit,
Swarm initiated.
then you're probably going to want the cannon to actually be pretty effective on target, in which case you want it to be ballistics. So, to me, that sounds like it might be the better option. Again, this is just theory crafting. This is
Warning.
haven't
There are
really
multiple hostiles inbound.
extensively gone all in on that. But the laser cannon here has the same velocity as the other cannons we just looked at. As long as it's enabled, it is going to lower the effect velocity. So as long as it's enabled, it's going to lower the effective velocity of the repeaters too. So The other thing is if you do enable it, the laser cannon, say over the ballistic cannon, is the laser cannon lowers the amount of capacitor charge that you're going to get into the repeaters, whereas the ballistic cannon will not. So that means that all that damage that you're getting supplemental on the ballistic cannon is not going to reduce the repeater damage in that same amount of burst. So yeah, I'm thinking I'm leaning towards ballistic cannon at this point, if you were to equip one, at least for the size 5 options. Honestly, the deadbolt looks pretty cool too. But yeah, I'd say that's your best option. If you do plan on, at least until they do more, tweaks and balances, I'd say put the ballistic cannon on if you're going to put anything on your size 5 instead of something on the size 4 with a gimbal. Disable it when you're fighting smaller things and enable it when you're fighting larger things. The only other question is do you put any other ballistic repeaters on? Because if you put additional ballistic... Well, actually, you could put them in the same weapon group. Because you could do it like... You could do it like this.
Swarm initiated.
You could put both ballistic repeaters in with that weapon group. Then you could
Warning. There are multiple hostiles
disable the
inbound.
deadbolt. So now you have energy repeaters on one weapon group, ballistic repeaters on the second one. And then if you enable the deadbolt again, then you get the deadbolt on the same weapon group as the ballistic repeaters.
First blood.
But I mean, killing that one NPC... Killing that one NPC, I basically used almost a third of my ballistic ammo. Yeah, I'm already down to half on those ballistic repeaters. Don't think that's the right approach to balancing ballistics.
Zero hostile contacts remaining. Warning. There are multiple hostiles inbound.
Contact. Contact.
That cannon enabled, that pip deflection is much, much greater. Against smaller, more agile, faster targets, it really strains the Vanguard's ability to hit anything when the velocity is that low. Although when the shots do get lined up and the cannon does connect, it's going to do a lot of damage. And if you had a turret gunner aiding you as well, it might be less of an issue.
Zero hostile contacts remaining.
I mean, the ballistic ammo is already drained. If this was the
Warning. There are
PU,
multiple hostiles inbound.
we'd already be heading back to reload. And with that low ammo count, it's not really that suitable for a
Contact.
what's supposed to be a long-range fighter as well.
Shields under fire.
Alright guys, I don't really have any more time right now, but I did wanted to get on and test those couple things, especially the weapon convergence. So, going to leave it here for now, and probably be back later in the week. So have a good one for now.